Hey folks, in this video we're going to do some work on the interior. I've been staring at these gaping holes in the dash for way too long. So in this video we're going to do something about that. Since I deleted the radio, that means I have some room here in the dash for activities. Speaking of which, I've got some gauges to install. We have an air-fuel ratio gauge, an oil pressure gauge, and a vacuum boost gauge. Also, I've got a couple power outlets that I can use to charge up my phone and the camera gear. Before I installed the gauges, I first installed the sensors for them. Actually, the oil pressure sensor was installed when I had the intake manifold removed to delete the CCV system. The vacuum line for the vacuum boost gauge was also installed during that time. And the wideband O2 sensor was installed when I removed the headers to fix the exhaust rattle. But I took all those video clips and put them together here, so they won't be spread out across multiple different videos. Alright, the intake manifold is in, it just needs to be torqued down. But we're going to take this opportunity to install an aftermarket oil pressure gauge, or I should say an oil pressure gauge sender. It's going to go in the side of the block right there. Here's a little adapter that I bought online. This is going to thread into that hole in the block. The stock sensor is going to thread into that end. And last but not least, my aftermarket sensor is going to go in the top like that. Let's hope this all fits. I made a video clip explaining that it didn't fit in that spot, so I had to use the other sensor location. But that video clip got corrupted. So in the next video clip, you'll see the gauge sender installed in the correct location. And here we have our oil pressure gauge sender installed. Okay, here's the wire for the new gauge sender for the oil pressure gauge. Okay, check this out. This vacuum hose right here used to go to the exhaust flap in the muffler, but I deleted that. But we have a rubber grommet in the firewall here, and another one going down into the driver's side footwell. So I'm going to take the wire for the oil pressure sensor and the vacuum line for the vacuum boost gauge, and I'm going to run them through there. Alright, we're good to go. This is our vacuum line from the intake manifold, and this is our wire from the oil pressure sender. Okay, so here is our oil pressure wire and our vacuum line coming through the driver's side footwell. Now all I need to do is run those over to the gauge cluster, which is going to be in the dash, and we're good to go. Next order of business is to install the wideband controller. I decided to mount it under the windshield cowl by the blower motor. I made a mounting bracket for it. It's basically just a strip of aluminum bent into shape. I put a piece of weather strip on it so the wideband controller won't get scratched up. I ran the wiring through an existing rubber grommet in the firewall. It comes through the firewall in the passenger airbag area. Okay, so the sensors and stuff are installed. Now it's time to get inside the car and start working on the interior. I'm going to start with the center console and work my way up. So I bought a double-din radio install kit. Yeah, it's ironic that I'm buying a radio install kit for a car that does not have a radio. However, this will make my life easier. For example, the double-din radio installation kit will relocate the climate controls from here down to here. so that will give me more room for activities. One thing I don't like about this install kit is the doubled-in faceplate. I think this thing is dorky looking. So, yeah. I bought a different one. This one I think looks better. Okay, so the first step will be to install the climate control in here and the DSC switch into here, and then I can install this piece into the dash. That was easy enough. The climate control just snaps into place, and the DSC switch just has a couple small screws. Also, I want to install a switch right about here somewhere to turn the interior lights on and off, because I want to delete the dome light assembly. However, I want to retain the on-off switch that turns the interior lights on and off. So I'm going to add a switch of my own, but I'm going to connect it to the two wires that this connects to. Actually, let's talk about that. Okay, the dome light has a whole bunch of wires that attach to the back of it, but the two that I'm concerned with are a brown wire, which is a ground, and a brown wire with a yellow stripe. What the switch does is it grounds the brown with the yellow stripe to ground, and that sends a signal to the interior light controller telling it to turn the interior lights on or off. So I'm going to connect these two wires to a momentary push button switch, and that will allow me to control the interior lights. Alright, we have our little switch hooked up. Alright, here we have the first piece installed. To get it installed, I had to pull the shifter all the way back, and I had to pull up the shift bezel so that I can take that piece and sort of rotate it into place like that underneath the shifter bezel. And since I have a light switch, I can get rid of this. Anyway, next order of business is to start working on the gauge panel. Speaking of the gauge panel, I've got this piece of Kydex that I bought online a while ago. I was originally going to use it to make a holster, but I never got around to that. Anyway, so I used my doubled-in faceplate as a template to mark out the edges of the gauge panel. And then, as you can see, I marked some holes for gauges and switches and stuff. So all I need to do is cut this stuff out, drill these holes, and then I can attach this piece to that piece, and we'll be good to go. Alright, I cut out the shape with the bandsaw. Now I just need to drill some holes. Okay, I had to cut these two pieces off of the mounting bracket. They were originally used to mount that ugly faceplate that I'm not going to use. But my faceplate needs to mount nice and flat. Okay, I drilled the holes for the mounting screws, and I'm test fitting it into the dash to make sure everything fits together okay. And it looks good. So now we just need to drill the holes for the gauges and the switches and stuff. Okay, all the holes are drilled. I just need to do one more thing. And that is this section across the edge here. I want to fold this over to give it a little bit more structural strength. Since Kydex is heat formable, I can clamp it between two pieces of wood like that, heat it with a heat gun, and then fold it over. Or actually, I'm going to fold it over that way. Okay, that wasn't too hard. Let's see how it turned out. Not bad. And here's the finished gauge panel. Let's get this installed in the dash. Okay, so here's the finished product. I did the wiring off camera because watching somebody do wiring is like watching paint dry. Also, I'm not sold on that double DIN bezel. I might just get rid of it. But in any case, that's it for this video. See you next time. I think next I'll try to install these. We'll see how that goes.